Okay, the Genius Act and the Parliamentarian Strikes Back.
60 Minutes Settling with Donald Trump, and a crash out on Instagram. Welcome to DownSampled News. Hello and welcome to DownSampled News. My name is Beelock and I'm here with my father,
Richie Bee.
Hey, it's almost as if we're related. And I definitely did not comb my hair between the last take and this one. But welcome to DownSampled News. And we have stories today from the past month. One of my stories, I guess, happened 2 days ago, technically in July.
Okay.
But mostly June kind of stuff that happened. And, not a lot happened in the past month of June. Certainly not many big government things.
No.
And certainly no big, beautiful bills. So what are we starting with today?
Okay, so what I want to talk about, not the thing that everybody's talking about, but another bill called the Genius Act.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Genius Act, the name stands for Guiding and Establishing National Innovation for U.S. Stablecoin Act.
Wow.
No.
I don't know if that person should get like an award for coming up with that acronym, or if they should like go to jail for coming up with that acronym. I don't know. One of those.
Like a genius award.
Hey.
So I assume you don't know what stablecoin is.
It's the kind of coin you use to access the horses in the stable. You have to put in
Not
the stable
quite.
coin.
No, that was back 100 years ago. So stablecoins are a kind of crypto coin. So you have maybe heard of cryptocurrency.
I have unfortunately heard of cryptocurrency, all against my will. Yes.
Right. So I know a little bit more about cryptocurrency than you. I don't know the gory details. I just have a little summary of what a cryptocurrency is. Well, you decide. So cryptocurrency basically is the motivation for cryptocurrencies is the libertarians were always upset that government controls currency and money and banks. They wanted to have a currency that was independent of government, independent of banks. Kind of that works, and that worked like cash, meaning that you can make payments anonymously. So you can when you pay for something in cash, there is no record, right? And physical possession of the pieces of paper or whatever, or coins. So with crypto, the idea was to come up with a way to digitally represent all this stuff. So in other words, basically, when you own cryptocurrency, you own a number.
Okay.
And you may have heard of Bitcoin.
Also, all against my will. Yes, I have heard of Bitcoin.
So Bitcoin, so owning the number is part of it. The other part is a ledger that says that you are the person or you are a wallet that owns the Bitcoin.
Okay.
A wallet is just some digital thing on your computer, like a little app on your computer or on your phone that has a code that's unique and it's recorded in this global ledger, which that's called the blockchain.
Okay. All right. I've
heard
these vocabulary words before. Yes.
Right. So ledger and the fact that you own something is recorded in there, and that's it. And people actually pay money for this. So
people have paid money for worse things.
So that's basically what crypto is. The thing about Bitcoin, which was the first one, was that Bitcoin, the set of numbers that you own is finite. So there's limited supply of them. And each number has to be a solution to this very complicated problem. So it's silly, I know.
So is it like there's cryptocurrency is like the broad, and Bitcoin is a type of cryptocurrency?
Bitcoin is the very first one.
Okay.
That's kind of introduced the idea.
Okay.
Right? So with Bitcoin, we maybe heard of mining Bitcoin.
Yes.
Mining Bitcoin means basically trying to find solutions to this problem, this computational problem. And it has about, I don't know, like 21 million solutions or something. And the longer this thing goes on, the harder it is to compute. So one way to obtain Bitcoin is by mining, running a program that computes it. When you find a number that nobody owns yet, then you can claim it.
You own it. Okay.
So it's kind of like gold in a way.
It's like a really weird, not fun video game to play.
But the idea was that you could then have this distributed payment system around the world where no governments were involved, because the ledger, the blockchain, is kind of global. Everybody can access it. It's on many computers. And if you claim that particular coin, a Bitcoin or crypto coin is yours, you just say, look in the ledger, see, it's my wallet. And the fact that the wallet is the thing on your phone or on your computer doesn't have your name in it. So that's why you can do anonymous kind of transactions.
Okay.
But it's the interesting thing about crypto is it's like cash in the sense that you can steal it.
Yeah, I was going to say, it sounds very, very usable for crime.
It is. Well, it is. And it's people hack people's computers and steal the wallets.
Oh,
and
what are you going to do?
So there's a website called Web3 is Going Great, which kind of lists these things that happened, the crimes that happened, all the break-ins and or if you lose your wallet, let's say you had a wallet on the USB key, right, with your Bitcoin, you lose it, it's gone.
It's like cash, yeah.
It's like cash, right? So the problem with Bitcoin was that because people trade it for money, its value fluctuates, kind of like gold, except gold can be used for some stuff, like you make jewelry from gold. You can't really make anything from Bitcoin. So people wanted to have this idea of kind of anonymous digital payments, but you don't want to, like, if somebody says this costs Bitcoin, but Bitcoin, one Bitcoin, let's say, but today the Bitcoin is worth $10, but a week later it's worth $200,000. Nobody's gonna, buy things priced in Bitcoin, because it's you can buy it and hopefully you hope that the price will go up and you can sell it for dollars. So a stable coin is the idea that you have a crypto coin kind of designed in the system. You own the number, there's a ledger, but each individual stable coin is pegged to $1. Right.
So it remains stable.
Right, that's the idea.
I get it. There you go.
So the idea is that then anybody can, not anybody, but let's say banks or companies can issue the coin, like you can have Amazon coin or Walmart coin, and this bill tries to regulate this to a degree. So it says basically, if you're going to issue a stable coin that says it's worth $1, you better keep $1 in your account. So if somebody who has this coin comes to you saying, give me my money.
Oh, trading. Yeah, they actually can back it up with capital, basically.
Right.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So that was, now crypto was...
Wait, did they not have to back it up before? They could just be like...
No, I could issue...
Oh my goodness.
I could issue crypto coin if I wanted. And, you could do silly things. So the crypto industry kind of wanted some regulations, but not too strong of a regulations, right? Like banking is very strictly regulated, especially banking that is insured by the federal government with the deposits and stuff. So the previous administration, Biden, and the SEC, which regulates this kind of stuff, were kind of hostile to crypto. And they really wanted to say crypto is like a stock and it has to be regulated like that. It's a and they didn't want that strong regulation. So this bill does some regulation, but is not quite as it's more aligned with what the crypto industry wanted.
Right, because the entire point of them making it in the first place was to not have the government regulation.
Right. Well, the thing is that they like government backup when things fail.
Oh, how interesting.
So
that's so weird.
I don't know if you remember, there was a bank that failed, was it a year ago or so, Silicon Valley Bank? Yes. It was a bank that was handling lots of startups. And startups make deposits in the bank. They get money from an investor, they put it in the bank. And bank typically insures your deposits up to $250,000. Many of these startups had a lot more money than they deposited. And because of interest rates going up, this bank had to go start selling bonds and things like that. Basically, people said, "Oh no, we want my deposits back because your bank is failing," and did the run on the bank, and because the Fed said, "Well, only $250,000 is insured, you lose the rest," and the startup community and VCs who invested this money kind of raised a, so the federal government actually came in and made them all whole.
Oh, it's so weird how you don't want the government involved and you think they're bad until you need them to do something for you, and then they're great.
So
I don't like the government, and I want the government's dirty hands off my Medicare. That's what I want.
So the funny thing is about this act, there was a very nice editorial in the New York Times by a professor of history and finance who compared what they're trying to set up is what the banking system was back in the 19th century. So back in the 19th century, basically, there wasn't a currency that covered the entire country. Each state could have a bank and issue their own currency.
Right. Yeah, I learned about this in middle school, and it was a bad thing.
It was an interesting thing because people would something would spread about the bank saying that it's bad or it doesn't have the right enough deposits, and there would be something called a bank run where everybody would come and says, "I want my money out." And of course, the way the banks work is that they took money in and they would invest in different things, and the investments would pay back. And then, unless everybody wanted the money back at the same time, everything was fine. So what they're trying to create with this Genius Act is essentially the same system except for stablecoins.
Okay.
Right. So like I said, Amazon can issue stablecoin, Walmart can issue, banks can issue stablecoin, and the regulations are fairly light on. You're supposed to have $1 for each coin that you issue, but you're not going to let just the dollar just sit there. You have to invest it in something, right? If you invest in treasury bonds, which are the most secure for the moment investment in the world, that's okay. But what if you invested in something, that might pay more, but then it fails,
Yeah, well, riskier, yeah.
So, so the interesting thing about this act so far, it has the bill passed the Senate, and it actually got some Democratic votes because there are some Democrats who think this is kind of high tech because it's crypto and computers.
Yeah.
And so they voted for it, and this version going to the House probably won't get considered till later this year. Right? So
what do you think? Is it good? Good to have the regulation? Bad? Neutral? What do you think?
The regulation's not strong enough, so it can, creating this kind of Wild West banking system. We kind of went through something like that back in 2008.
Oh boy! Hold on, I remember that was not a good year financially, as I recall.
No. And the government had to issue lots of money to support things. So we'll see what happens to this in the House. I assume it's going to pass. I presume that the president, whoever he is going to sign it.
Some guy.
I think he likes the crypto stuff.
Yeah, I tend to think that he likes the crypto stuff.
So that's my story. I've been kind of just paying attention to it slightly, just because I'm a very skeptical crypto person. But then, of course, money is a funny thing anyway. I tell people money is not real.
It's not.
It's just
capitalism is fake. Revolt. Return to natural order of things.
Anyway, that's my story.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay. So my fun story I guess this is actually my bad story that I bring. We start with the more serious news. Is the settlement between Paramount and Donald Trump for the absolutely insane lawsuit that Trump brought against Paramount. So basically, CBS, who's the parent company of Paramount and 60 Minutes, they own 60 Minutes. It's like CBS,
Minutes,
Paramount, I forget exactly what the ultimate company is. But I don't know if you remember the election last year. There was an election last year, yeah. It was some people talked about it, I don't know. There was a 60 Minutes interview on the show 60 Minutes that runs for 60 minutes.
So on 60 Minutes, it's a tradition that they always interview both presidential candidates before the election.
Yeah.
This year Trump declined.
Yes. He was afraid to go.
Well, it was last year.
Yeah. So, but Kamala Harris went and she gave an interview, and as every TV show does. The interview was edited because they only have so much time, and they interview people for much longer than the time they have to air the interview. This happens on every television show is edited. Every TikTok you see is edited. Every YouTube video is edited. Like, we edit things.
Not this one.
Not this. This one's straight. You can't even see the cuts that we made. But that's just the nature of visual television. Like, a visual medium show is edited. That's an innate part of it. Donald Trump was very emotionally hurt by this editing. And that was actually his claim. So the claim that his lawyers put forward, that I want to know what snotty little intern from what Ivy League school came up with this claim.
ChatGPT.
Okay. Or what ChatGPT came up with this. The claim was that the way that 60 Minutes edited Kamala Harris's responses to questions inflicted emotional harm on Donald Trump. And that's why they filed suit. And so what ended up happening is that just last week, 60 Minutes, CBS, Paramount settled for $16 million. And there's a lot of theories about why this happened, but I want to talk a little bit about the legal aspect of this first, then we can get into more, because I think we have different theories as to what happened.
Right.
So I'm a criminal defense attorney. I don't work in civil. I have some experience in civil, but that's not my wheelhouse. My wheelhouse is crim. But when it comes to what this would be what's considered tortuous lawsuit, where you're saying, you intentionally inflicted emotional damage on me. That is a type of lawsuit. It's called intentional infliction of emotional damage, IIED. It is so hard to prove. You have to be so emotionally scarred, like so emotionally scarred. And you have to prove so much to get there. By way of example, one of my friends, you know this friend, but I won't say her name. One of my friends had a baby a few years ago, and she had, during her pregnancy, gotten COVID. She was okay, but she went to the hospital because she was pregnant at the time. She got treated. She went home. She recovered. She was fine. 2 months later, she had her baby. It had to be an emergency C-section. It was a complicated situation. The baby was in the NICU initially. Everybody's fine now. But because she had COVID recently, when she gave birth, she still was testing positive. Now, because she was testing positive, she wasn't allowed to interact with the infant for the first 48 hours. Oh. So she gives birth through an emergency C-section. They take her baby away, and then they say, you can't see her for 48 hours. Now, that was a mess up at the hospital, because the hospital had the records, or should have had the records, of her initial COVID case from 2 months before. But they didn't. They lost them. So my friend went through very severe emotional distress, having had a traumatic birth and then not being allowed to see her child in the NICU for 48 hours until they had the infectious disease specialist cleared her, ultimately. And then everything was okay. And we did look into lawyers, because it was like, that was the hospital's mistake. The hospital should, like, that happened. They shouldn't have done that. And to us, a harm was caused. And we looked into it, and the lawyer said, not enough harm. Hey, you were upset for 2 days? You're all right. It's so hard to prove intentional infliction of emotional distress, because basically the law looks at you and is like, you have all of your limbs, you can see, everything's functional, you'll be fine. Go to therapy. Have fun. So the idea that Trump would sue on this, first of all, it's hilarious that the strong man who's so tough and so masculine had his feelings hurt by 60 Minutes. But then to actually put that forward as a lawsuit is like embarrassing for the attorneys. And then for the other party to actually capitulate is so embarrassing. If I worked for that company when they did it, I would literally quit. I would just literally quit. I wouldn't be able to go into work. I'd be like, this is insane. Like, I'm just so embarrassed to be associated with capitulating to a lawsuit that would be so easy to win. You would win it in the dismissal phase. So a little bit more legal stuff for you. In criminal law, generally you're bringing motions to dismiss against indictments. It's a lot harder to get a dismissal in criminal law because for an indictment you have a whole grand jury thing, there's evidence, like a whole thing. So criminal cases are not frequently dismissed. Civil is different. Civil is just like you bring a complaint. There's no juries or grand juries involved in the beginning. You don't get a jury till like way, way later. If you do a jury at all, a lot of times you do bench trials with just the judge. But one of the very first motions you file in civil is a motion to dismiss. And it's just like pro forma. You just file it like, oh, someone filed something against me, motion to dismiss. And you put whatever reasons you want. Like it's like the claim is bullshit, they're out of jurisdiction, whatever you have.
Mm-hmm.
This would have been dismissed so easily. And I just don't understand. Because then the next step after that is depositions, which means Donald Trump would have had to sit for a deposition. And we know he won't do that. So we know it would get dropped at that point. So I just don't understand why. And I have my theories, but I don't understand what's going on over at CBS that they just say, okay, I'm going to give you what it ultimately amounts to, a legal bribe to be done with this, as opposed to just like carrying it one or two steps forward and winning that way.
Right.
So what do you think?
So here's my theory. And so CBS and Paramount are in talks to merge with company name Skydance Media.
Yeah.
Right. And it's a multi-billion-dollar merge. And these kinds of mergers, because they're so large, they have to be approved by the FEC.
Right.
And who controls FEC?
Yes, I know.
So basically, this is an intimidation on part of Trump. And also, he does wield the power of the government. And he can tell his FEC commissioners, just don't approve this merger. And so I suppose the people who want to merge the companies would lose a lot of money.
Yeah, they're up in the billions. So the payoff was $16 million, but the merger is like in the billions.
And the payoff goes to the Trump Library.
Trump Library, which is just a money laundering scheme. I know money launderers. That's what they do.
Open libraries?
They do shit like I'm donating it to what I've represented them. This is money. It's just money laundering. It's so obvious. Anyway. So yeah, I mean, I know there's the merger bit. I think it's probably more complicated than maybe I'm willing to give it credit for.
Okay.
But knowing attorneys, in my my little world and my little experience with the attorneys I've encountered, I think the attorneys are just afraid of trial. I think they just don't know how to litigate. And civil attorneys almost never go to trial. They never see juries. They never have to go to court. They just do motions and maybe stuff in front of a judge, that kind of thing. But they're not experienced trial attorneys, so they can't actually make that threat. And it's really, really important as a litigator to be able to genuinely make the threat. Okay, if we can't resolve this how I want, put a jury in the box and let's go. You need to be able to do that. Civil attorneys, I don't know what the stat is nowadays, but as of a few years ago, the average age for a civil attorney to go to trial, a jury trial for their first time, was 38 years old.
No.
I was opening in my first murder trial when I was 25. So I think they're just afraid. Attorneys who don't do trials are afraid of trial.
Okay, that may be true. The other thing is this would be a circus. It would
be so much fun. I'm literally, I think the concept of doing this trial makes me shake with happiness. It's such a clear win. It would also never get to trial because, like I said, it would get dismissed in the earlier stages. But can you imagine if it got there and you got to cross-examine Donald Trump about how sad he was? Oh my God!
You know what kind of circus that would be?
It would be amazing. But I get it. The company has different motivations, and this is one of the reasons capitalism is bad, because money takes a priority over what is morally right. And this is part of what's eroding journalism right now with the different places that have been capitulating to Donald Trump, because they're like, well, but the money involved. And I'm like, but if you keep doing this, there's not going to be any more money involved because there's not going to be any more you.
Well, that may be so. That's why there's the rise of what's called the independent journalists, something like us.
Hey.
We're not journalists, but there's many other.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so I think the lawyers are just scared. And I mean, look.
Well, I would. I think they may be scared not so much of going to trial, but going to trial in which Donald Trump would be involved, and the place would be a circus, and the people who were not defending Trump, but who were the prosecutors, would get tremendous, threats and whatnots from the fan base.
Honestly, it's a circus, but it's one of those, this is my circus, is my monkeys kind of situation. Sometimes it's not my circus, not my monkeys. This, if you're a trial litigator, this is your circus, this is your monkeys. And you gotta go in and give them the old razzle dazzle. That's what you gotta do. If it's gonna be crazy, it's gonna be crazy on your terms, and you have to, control.
True,
that
but
courtroom.
then if you have people threatening your family or throwing bricks through your windows in your house, you might think twice about that.
For the chance to cross-examine Donald Trump under oath, whew, I'd take it. I'd take it in a heartbeat. It just the fantasy. I just love that. It's fantastic. Anyway, that's my report.
Okay.
Okay, so then what is is this your happy story?
These are somewhat happy stories.
Okay.
Some maybe unintended happy stories. So I have two items that I wanted to bring up.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if you've heard, but U.S. Steel and Nippon Steel, a Japanese company, are going to merge.
Oh, yes.
And government, Biden administration was against it. Trump administration has reversed course. However, the administration insisted that U.S. government gets what's called a golden share of the company.
Okay.
Which basically what it does, it's almost not quite nationalizing steel, but it gives the government a veto power on anything that the company does. So like if let's say they want to build a plant in Mexico, the U.S. says no. You want to, you have to build in the U.S. or you have to produce one kind of steel and whatever, or not other, right? So basically, the Trump administrations want to have that kind of control over the company. Right? So you think that's bad?
Not necessarily.
That's right, because no matter what people think, this administration will not be around forever. And at some point, there's going to be some administration that's
manifesting that, yes.
that will say, yes, we have the golden share of the steel company. You better start producing steel in a carbon neutral way.
Okay,
right?
Interesting.
So that's just a little bit of the news. That it's possible actually to do that, produce steel without carbon. To produce steel, you have to burn stuff. You need a lot of heat to melt things, and you can do that with electricity rather than coal, let's say.
Oh, interesting.
So it's just more expensive. But in the future, the government would say, okay, look, you make it without burning coal. We'll maybe subsidize you a little bit, so reduce the cost, and that's how you will make steel from now on. So
that would be great. I would love to not have these giant heat waves.
I hate to tell you this, but this is the coolest summer for the rest of your life.
Oh boy.
So that's my kind of story with some unintended consequences potential down the road. But the other one is about the parliamentarian.
Yes, so you were telling me about this is related to the biggest,
the
most
big
beautiful
ugly bill. Yeah.
No, it's the biggest, most beautiful bill we've ever seen.
No, did you notice that the abbreviation for this bill was BBB? The first bill that Joe Biden tried to pass was called Build Back Better, also BBB.
Okay.
I think somebody stole naming.
Yeah. Hey, wait a minute. Hold on.
So anyway, parliamentarian. So Senate is a weird place.
That's putting it lightly.
Normally, when you pass the bill, you have to vote to bring the bill to the floor, and that can be filibustered, meaning somebody can say, no, I'm going to talk, or prevent it from coming up for a vote. And to override filibuster, you need 60 votes.
Right.
But there is the special rule called reconciliation, which only requires majority to pass. But for a bill to qualify for that, has to follow certain rules. One of them is this Byrd rule, which we talked about briefly.
A little bit last time.
BYRD. Yeah. It's named after a senator from Virginia, I believe.
Yeah.
And so parliamentarian is a lawyer in the House, in the Senate, who, when they write legislation, looks at it and says, okay, this follows these rules and this doesn't, and strikes things out.
Now, is the parliamentarian also a senator?
No.
No. Okay, that's what I was
She's a
wondering.
lawyer.
Okay.
All
right.
Basically, it's part of the Senate.
Mm-hmm.
Her name is Elizabeth McDonough. I don't know. Anyway,
Mm-hmm.
so as they were working on this bill, here's some of the things she struck from the bill.
Okay, I'm excited.
So, for example, the bill had a provision to sell all the Postal Service EV trucks.
EV?
Electric.
Oh, the electric vehicles. Oh, they
Right.
wanted to get rid of all the electric.
Because Democrats like it. And,
So Republicans don't, yeah.
So
she struck that.
she struck that.
Okay.
They wanted to skip any environmental evaluation of leases for offshore drilling of oil. She struck that.
Mm-hmm.
She rejected some stuff about the speeding up of permits for building roads in Alaska to go to some mines.
Mm-hmm.
Rejected the provision to sell federal lands.
Mm-hmm.
So there's like millions of acres of federal lands that they wanted to sell to private companies.
Mm-hmm.
Rejected a provision that would prevent the Secretary of Interior kind of have the power to decide how much to credit or to give to people who implement wind and solar stuff on federal lands.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Rejected, had a provision that no Medicaid for non-citizens.
Why are they so obsessed with this? But she rejected that. She
Yes.
got that got taken out. Okay, good.
Rejected prohibition on use of ACA for subsidies for abortion.
Okay, good.
So federal employees get pensions from the federal government and they have to contribute a certain amount of it. So they wanted to increase the amount that the federal employees had to contribute to the pensions. She struck that.
Oh, good.
She struck the part about limiting court powers. Remember? We talked about that. There was this weird thing about they wanted to limit what kind of things courts could do.
Right, yes. Yes, I remember.
That's
good.
gone.
Good.
She rejected the provision for non-citizens getting. They wanted to prohibit non-citizens from getting food stamps. She made them take out a whole bunch of stuff that was meant to replace a farm bill. So farm bill is like a big bill that's passed by the Congress about 5 years, which provides tons of subsidies and support for farms.
Which I've heard are important for us to eat food.
Right,
Yes.
and some of the subsidies are questionable about we overproduce some stuff. She rejected provision that we're going to remove all the funding for CFF, Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. Right, that's been kind of decimated by Doge, but
Right.
it's still there. They wanted to just remove all the funding for it, so essentially it would be dead.
Oh.
She took it out.
Okay.
And they wanted to repeal the standards on emission for cars.
What?
She took that out. So this is like
Are they supervillains? Why are they trying to do this?
it's 900-page bill. They figured they can shove it in.
Oh my God.
Yay, parliamentarian.
Well, that's good. I like Miss Elizabeth McDonough.
Yeah.
Good for her. Thank you, Elizabeth, for doing what you can. So what's the parameters? I heard about this a little bit. So the parameters are like, because it has to be related to reconciliation, it has to be budget related?
It has to be budget related,
Okay.
and the rules can get a bit complicated.
So basically she was like, these are outside the scope of what.
Right, and then
This
basically
reconciliation
what they
could be.
can do is, if they want to pass this stuff, they can bring it as a regular bill,
Right.
but then they'll need 60 votes.
Right.
So
That's why they were trying to do it this way.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, perhaps not as big and beautiful as we thought originally. Okay, so my fun topic is some internet drama
Ooh.
that I love. What the kids call this a crash out. And this has been happening for the past week or so.
Today I learned.
Today I learned, yeah. There's this author named, so this is a crash out happening on TikTok. A lot of this was happening on Instagram, but like it was on Instagram stories, which like disappear after a certain amount of time. So by the time I heard about it, that was gone, but there are people that screenshotted it and put it on TikTok. So that is where I am getting my information. if you are interested, you are more than welcome to jump down the TikTok rabbit hole and explore it as I have. But I'll give you the gist. And it's about AI, one of our favorite topics. So there is a robust community on TikTok, generally referred to as book talk, which includes people that read a lot of books, people that read books and talk about the books, and then people who write books. So it's kind of all over the place, or it's all about books. And overwhelmingly, the feeling on book talk, the predominant feeling, is that generative AI is bad. And which is fair, because as we've talked about, we know there's issues in terms of...
it's bad. It's bad if you use it to write a book and pretend that it's you.
Right. Well, that's exactly what it is. So what the concern is on book talk is using generative AI in two ways. Either to, very specifically, to make the cover art for your book, as opposed to hiring an artist, and generative AI to actually write your book. That is an actual topic of regular debate on Book Talk. It's fascinating. And there is a small, what appears to me, at least from where I am on TikTok, a small cadre of people who are in favor of both of those things. And the arguments I mostly see for the picture portion is people saying well, I don't have the money to hire an artist, and then debate spirals out of that. And then the other one is I have these great ideas, but I just don't have the skill to write it. And which case, and pretty much everyone's then you don't get to write a book. Everyone has an idea for a book, but if you can't write the book, then you don't get to write it. So what's really interesting is when actually published authors, traditionally published authors who have a publishing company behind them, ruin their reputations by coming on the internet and saying, actually, generative AI is great and you should use it to write your books. Because then all of us go, well, hold on. Did you use it to write your book? Now, Book Talk's main concern is the fact that generative AI is taking from other artists and is trained on, things. We've talked about copyright, right. Some of that. No one ever really talks about the other half of that, which is that if it's made by AI, you can't have copyright to it.
Right.
Which is something I think needs to be brought into the conversation, but that's not for today. So this author, Jessa Hastings, wrote some series of books called Magnolia, something, what have you. I don't know. I haven't read them. I'm not going to. But they're apparently quite popular. She's an Australian author. And over the past few months, she's made a number of comments supporting the use of generative AI, and people have started to attack her for it. So, for example, she, a few months ago, earlier this year, she posted an AI-generated image of what she imagines her characters in her book to look like. She used, some whatever program. Right. And she posted it to Instagram. And immediately, people were like, you are literally a published author. Why are you using generative AI to make art? Hire someone. You have no excuse to be doing this. And then she complained that people were being mean to her. And the meanies on the internet, she said meanies on the internet came after her. Well. It got worse. So Ms. Hastings got involved somehow with defending another writer on the internet for using AI, generative AI. And then Hastings had what the kids do call a crash out on Instagram, where she posted these giant blocks of text to her story where she said some wild, crazy shit. And so I'm going to read them to you. There's two. She wrote, I presume every time you open TikTok to spew your hate, you are completely horrified by your AI-generated algorithm that brings you your homepage. And thank God you're Magellan when it comes to navigation, because your pious ass would never be caught dead using Google Maps. And I know that the next time your bank texts you a fraud detection and it was in fact not you, that you're going to pass on the refund the bank would have supplied you because the texts are AI driven, right? You're so above it. And also this is full of a lot more curses that I'm editing out of this.
Okay, good. Thank you.
You're so above it. You don't ever use it, which is why you're able to stone people who do. You don't have a Roomba. You wouldn't be caught dead with a Ring camera. And you definitely don't use an Apple Watch, an Oura Ring, or Whoop. I don't know what that is. And most obviously, you've never once in your whole entire life used an Instagram filter, a TikTok voice change, or background swap. So you on your AI high horse, I hope to God your hands are well clean of all of the above, or else you're nothing but a giant hypocrite and a bit of a prick. buy. So that was the first one.
Oh, there was more. But wait, there is more.
But wait, there's more. I think there actually were 5, but I've only found 2. So we'll just quickly read the second one, and then we shall discuss. Last thing I'll say about it, Ms. Hastings wrote, everyone who's giving that creator shit for using AI, you better be so above reproach in your own self-righteous little lives. I mean, like, you better never have used autocorrect and predictive text, better have face unlocking turned off on your phone, fingerprint scanning too, and you sure better not be using Siri or Alexa. You had better not have purchased anything through a targeted ad or product recommendation. You definitely cannot have ever interacted with a chatbot or on an online store before. And I hope your spam filter's off, and you better not have tabbed a smart reply on Gmail. Hope your grammar's perfect, because no Grammarly for you either. I also hope you never watch anything Netflix has recommended you, and I know for sure you're not listening to Discover Weekly on Spotify. So, she got a little mad. I don't know why she got so mad, but she did. And this has sparked a really interesting conversation on Book Talk that Hastings has not participated in, because she doesn't seem to have any interest in like a genuine conversation about this. But there are a lot of videos on TikTok right now, people who have analyzed these, going through these. And I thought it was interesting because it's something you and I have talked about in terms of AI as a tool versus AI as an author.
Right.
And what a lot of people on TikTok have more eloquently than I analyzed is that there's a difference between AI tools and generative AI. And so that seems to be where the Book Talk community is coming to, using Hastings examples of like the Roomba, the Google Maps, predictive text. Those are like the 3 big ones people have been referring to, because those are tools that are quite different from what generative AI is doing in terms of feeding it a prompt and having it like give you paragraphs and paragraphs of text for a book. And so that's kind of like where that conversation has gone to. And I think it's a really interesting, and it's the right conversation to have of, you know, at what point in time is it a tool like Google Maps or like your Roomba or predictive text versus when is that AI becoming the author of your work?
Well, that goes to the question: is it an entity, or is it a monkey, or is it a brush?
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, as a tool, I think you should be able to use it. Maybe for things like you might want to say that this is a book written by me with ChatGPT, and my answer then usually would be, if you didn't have time to write it, I don't have time to read it.
Yeah, I think disclosure is going to be a big thing in the future. Yeah.
By the way, Emily Bender, who's like a linguist, who's one of my heroes in this thing, she refers to these chatbots as synthetic text execution machines.
Interesting.
STEM.
Well, I mean, it is really interesting because, and actually I was researching earlier on a different topic, and the Copyright Office earlier this year actually released a report where there have been things that have been somewhat AI generated that have gotten copyright protection, but they're sort of, so far they've just been like in images. The law hasn't really delved yet into text. I think text is going to be a lot harder.
Well, I mean, there was this case that recently was won by Meta and Anthropic, maybe it was, with when they trained their LLMs on copyrighted books. Yeah. And it was considered fair use.
Right. So I'm more concerned with the second half. So the first half of like feeding in already existing material into an LLM to train it, I think that has a few very clear ways to fix it, which is just have it so that people can submit their work to a database and get paid for it. Yeah. You've taken care of the problem. The bigger problem in my mind is the second half, which is, well, what do you do once you have a material that was made by AI? Who owns it at that point? And that's where copyright law is pretty clear that you need a human author. But then, what if you have a book that's entirely written by an AI, you're fucked. Like that, you can't own that. But what if you use AI for 30%?
Well, that's a question. Yeah. For example, all these code assistants for people writing software, right? So it's the same the same kind of a thing. It's like, okay, I wrote this program, and 35% of it is written by AI, but so what? So who owns the copyright?
Right.
Is the copyright?
Right. So what they've been doing, I'll show you actually. I was just reading about this earlier today, because this is what I do in my spare time. I just read about copyright and AI.
Oh.
So the Copyright Office recently has been giving copyright protection to art images that were somewhat produced by AI. Because what the artist did was he used an AI program to generate the objects, but then he arranged them. And so the Copyright Office said the arrangement is the creative portion. So the arrangement of it like this is copyrightable, but the individual elements in the picture that were generated by AI are not. And it's interesting because if you think about it, and that, to me, that kind of mimics how like a physical artist would work. Like you can go to the store and buy clay and then you make a sculpture. You have copyright in that sculpture. You don't have copyright in the clay.
Well, even the writing, it's like if you have a sentence that's 3 words, that's it. But I can't copyright that, but it can occur inside the copyright work, right?
Right, exactly. So, I mean, the Copyright Office will get really granular with this kind of stuff, which is great, and which is like really interesting legally. So, Book Talk right now is just like kind of up in arms about Hastings and her craziness. I have pulled a few funny TikToks made about this that I will play, and so you could see, and I'll put them up so you guys can see them, and I'll put the creators' names in the description if you guys want to go check out their stuff.
Generative AI is not the same as a Roomba. Don't be a Goomba. Generative AI is not a tool you can flex into God a GPS. That's just crazy. Honestly, it's so really lazy. I'm not commissioning artists. Don't get me started. All these little crazy generative AI.
So that guy made a little song.
What if I use AI to generate a little video complaining about this?
Deeply ironic. Oh, I have 2 more. This is what I like. You see what it says? Roomba's cleaning this weekend after catching strays on Jessica Hastings' Instagram story. So these are her books. And then this was my personal favorite. Again, the Roomba comment really got people. I have a Roomba, so I should consult my Roomba about my editing process, but I like this one. You see what it says? I really like that one.
Well, it's not like me to bring up Lem.
I've never heard you talk about Lem before. I've never been forced to read so many Lem books and stories before. That's so weird for you to bring up Lem.
The funny thing is you haven't read the one that would be relevant, which is called The Washing Machine Tragedy, in which the companies put AI into washing machines.
Lem is a science fiction writer. Stanislaw Lem.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. So I mean, as of right now, I think it's really, I mean, legally, law is trying to catch up to AI and whatever, but like at least in the writing community and the reading community, I like what you said. If you don't have time to write it, I don't have time to read it. That's kind of the feelings of everybody at this point. And I don't know that, even if the law allowed for that, like if the law allowed for an AI generated book to be owned by anyone, I don't know that the audiences are really open to it.
They're real deep down. The problem is money, right? Because if if there was no money in it, who cares?
Well, that's the thing, though. So right now, I mean, this case, and as far as I can find, this case hasn't happened yet, where someone has written a book that they admit is partially done by AI. People have probably published books that are partially AI, but they just don't say shit.
Oh yeah, people do that on Amazon all the time.
Yeah, but no one has like put themselves out there and been like, I wrote this book using ChatGPT. I wrote 70%. It wrote 30%. I litigate it. No one has done that. And my guess is a publisher wouldn't want to mess with that, because if that publisher cannot own 100% of that intellectual property, they don't want to have anything to do with it.
Yeah.
I mean, you can even have cases where, like, for example, if you independently publish a book first, and then later want to have a traditionally published through a publishing house, very frequently they won't do that because it's sort of impossible to ever get a hold of the entire IP, because it was already out there in another published another way. So and if they don't have 100%, then they can't control all the distribution. They can't control the derivative works. What if you have a spin-off TV show? What if you have a movie? What if you have more books? Like, if they only own 70% because 30% was ChatGPT, then what do you do when unauthorized printed copies appear on Amazon? Do you sue? Can you? If you don't own it 100%? Can people reprint the ChatGPT chapters? It really makes it business-wise very muddy.
So there's interesting kind of offshoot of this problem. I've seen articles about the college essay going away because all the college students will use ChatGPT to write their essays.
Oh.
Right, and the whole point of taking writing class in college is not to get a grade, but to learn how to write.
Yeah.
Right. So, but because there are grades and people are concerned about grades, they will use ChatGPT. I could imagine a class where there is no grades. You come into the class and teacher will say, "Okay, we're here to learn how to write. You can write. I will discuss what we're supposed to write. And if you write something that you write, I can look at it, maybe. Otherwise, it's
Yeah.
But because grades kind of distort the setup, right?
Yeah, absolutely, because it changes your goal from learning to getting the good grade.
This is my joke about if you want to build up muscles, do you send your robot to the gym?
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, and I've yet to see what I would consider a compelling argument for using generative AI for writing a book. Like, there's definitely AI tools that are useful because, for example, if you have a very difficult time typing or speaking, and predictive text, for example, that's very helpful. It's like a disability accommodation.
Well, what people use ChatGPT is for brainstorming, for example. So you want to come up with a name of something. It says, give me alternatives for a particular name. This is what I'm trying to do. What would you call it? And this can generate a bunch of stuff. And you say, well, that's kind of cool. And let me use that. I don't know if you could use that for plot elements or something. Then the problem, I think people sort of mistake, the value of the book is in the fact that it was written by this unique person, and it's their point of view and their voice.
Right.
And if it's just generic AI slop, I don't want to read that.
Exactly. Well, I mean, I see that all the time on Book Talk and Author Talk. People are writing stuff where they're like, oh, what if my idea isn't unique enough? And it's like, I'm going to break it down to you real slow. Nobody's idea is unique.
That's right.
The idea you have, it's been done. There's bajillions of books written in human history on stories of all kinds. It's been done before. What is unique is you.
Yeah.
Is the you aspect of it, and you doing the writing. And you're right. If you supplement it too much with ChatGPT or some kind of generative AI, I think you lose that. And audiences are aware, so they're currently at least rejecting that kind of work. Even the kind of work where it's suspicious, where people are like, I don't know, that cover art looks too rendered. I don't know if I trust that cover art.
I did something funny. I on my little Substack, I wrote an article about software engineers being replaced by AI. The question was, will software engineers be replaced by AI? And short answer is no. But I included an AI summary of my article at the beginning.
Oh, really?
It wasn't a bad summary.
Yeah. I mean, stuff like that, when Facebook does little summaries of what's happening in the comments, just read the comments. I mean, and also it's not always accurate. That's what drives me crazy about chat. These damn kids. This is my last point. these damn kids and their ChatGPT. I've heard many people say that they'll, instead of researching something, they'll just ask ChatGPT. And I'm like, ChatGPT is wrong all the time.
Yeah.
It's not, you can't rely on it. Especially like in law, people going to ChatGPT and asking the law questions. I'm like, it is not advanced enough to understand all the nuances.
It doesn't understand anything. It's
Right.
just a text generation machine.
Right, exactly. And people rely on it, and it's not good. So yeah, if you were feeling down about yourself today, at least you didn't have an Instagram crash out as a published author about how we should use generative AI in our writing. So you could feel better about yourself now. All right, well, that was our show. Thank you so much for joining us
Thank
here.
you for listening. And
Yeah. And this is DownSampled News. And if you want to check out any of the creators we showed videos of, you can look below for their names. And if you want to follow me on Blue Sky, I'm Beelock on Blue Sky. I post things there. And otherwise, we'll see you next time.
bye-bye. It's recording?
It is recording, yes.
Oh, we have speed.
What?
In the old recording studios, when they used to have tape,
Uh-huh.
they would turn the tape on and then the tape would speed up and they would say, we have speed.
Oh, yes. That's what they used to do back in the day. Yeah?
Back in my day.